This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And Brandon, this is, so for tonight, Monday night, this is the, third different topic or third different sport that both you and I have talked about tonight. We did the Primetime podcast, 3 segments there. We did our baseball topic that we've started doing a weekly thing there. Then we went to get food before it's like, all right, bye, see you tomorrow kind of a thing. And the Redskins and the Chiefs decided to drop a hefty news story right into our lap. So this is us talking about it. Didn't want to wait in a full week for Mark and I. So Mark, you're seeing this, I'm sorry, but I didn't want to wait a full week to kind of talk about this. And you're a Chiefs fan, so what better person to be on here with me than a Chief resident? But enough with the intro. Alex Smith is traded from the Chiefs to the Redskins. Alex Smith was just on the Dan Patrick Show early today, nearly took off McLovin's head with a fastball, and now he's going to Washington. So here's what we're going to do. 3-parter to this one. First, we're going to look at Alex Smith going to the Redskins. Then we're going to look at Kirk Cousins. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to get a mega deal. We're going to talk about where we could see him going. Then we will wrap everything up looking at the Chiefs and what they are going to be now with Patrick Mahomes being the guy in Kansas City. So let's start with Washington. They get Alex Smith. What does it mean for the Redskins?
Well, right now, I'm not quite sure. It sounds like by reading some of the articles, a Bleacher Report right now saying that Washington and Alex Smith have agreed in principle to a 4-year deal.
Damn.
So that is interesting. It just, quite honestly, the landing spot of Washington is interesting. And I know that obviously Washington was not exactly, for whatever reason, not happy with Kirk Cousins. The relationship was tense. And now we know Kirk Cousins won't be there.
Well, he won't be franchise tagged either.
No. So that'll be really interesting to see where he ends up going. You think you already know his landing spots.
I do.
But for Alex Smith, if he's able to come in and, he was with the Chiefs 5 years, really gave, I think, the Chiefs 5 years, and what Alex Smith did with Kansas City, he was able to revive his career. His career was dead. His career was dead. It was I shouldn't say dead. It was on the deathbed in San Francisco. And he came to Kansas City, and Andy Reid helped him, put him on life support, and said, we're going to get you up and going. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm really happy to see that because Alex Smith, and especially in his last year, I think probably his best year as a Chief, over 4,000 yards, passing, 26 touchdowns. That is what Alex Smith can bring to Washington. And now that it seems they'll have a quarterback that they want, a quarterback that has a longer-term contract with supposedly 4 years.
Yeah.
That's great. That's something to really be able to build off of. And I think if they could get a healthy Jordan Reed again, Alex Smith loves his tight ends. He loved Travis Kelce in Kansas City. You get Jordan Reed back working into the mix. I think this offense will really take off again in Washington and could be something to really watch for in this next year, certainly, and then in coming years under Alex Smith.
The big thing that this means for the Redskins, and you kind of mentioned it, but I'm going to sum it up in one word: stability.
Yeah.
It means stability at the most important position. And the big thing, and I'm going to bring his opinion in because I know that he would be upset if I didn't, but Sean's always been on the side of Alex Smith is not going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. The Chiefs should move on from him. He's not going to be the guy to bring your team a Super Bowl. However, the Redskins at quarterback for the last few years, you mentioned the relationship with Kirk Cousins. It's been tenuous, but they always felt like from the Redskins, I always got the vibe that they never felt like he was the guy. to where it was like he had the one good year. All right, we're going to franchise tag you. Do it again. He does it again. Franchise tags him a second time. Bet you can't do it 3 times in a row. He was pretty good for him. So now they're like, shit, we're not going to franchise tag you a third time. I like this move on the side of the Redskins because, like you said, if they can get Jordan Reed back, that's their tight end. Alex Smith loves his tight ends. They also have Vernon Davis, and Vernon Davis isn't, I would say, what he used to be, but as a backup tight end, I could see those two guys getting majority of the volume from Alex Smith.
And Alex Smith, was Alex Smith not throwing to Vernon Davis for a little while out in San Francisco?
I believe he was. I'd have to double check that, but I mean, you look at the wide receivers that they have, the big one is Doxson. They drafted him out of TCU, and they expected him to be a guy. Now, his rookie season was a little shaky at that, but he's the guy that they expected to come in and be that deep ball threat. What I'm seeing here is not exactly, but just hear me out now. You've got Alex Smith. You've got a tight end when healthy in Jordan Reed that could be kind of like your Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is a lot better of a tight end. You have a main wide receiver like the Chiefs had in Tyreek Hill, and then you just have wide receivers that can catch the ball. And then the running back situation, I mean, they have Thompson, but I really liked what I saw from Pirine this year, and I think eventually Samaje Pirine is going to be the number one back there. The thing I love most about this as well for the Redskins is they get a quarterback with stability. Like you said, it looks like they're going to be signing a 4-year deal with Alex Smith. You've got the quarterback locked down, don't have to worry about it. Now I'm thinking draft, number 13 overall, we're not talking quarterback for them anymore. They can go somewhere else. They can get a different need, whether that is on the offensive side, getting a weapon for Alex Smith, or if it's then on the defense to help their defense so that they can bolster that. Because you think about last offseason, I think it was last offseason, they go ahead and get Josh Norman. Now this offseason, they bring in Alex Smith.
Yeah, I think that if they could bring in maybe another wide receiver, another weapon for Alex Smith, and I'm not saying that they need to do that at number one in their number one pick.
There's free agents out there.
But if they could do that, if they could bring in another receiver, just because right now you're looking at Dotson, you're looking at what's his name? I just had it.
Ryan Grant?
Nope. I was just thinking about him. Jamison Crowder. You have those guys, but none of them is like that stud. Not yet. And I know that the hope is that Josh Dotson will get there. And again, still young, still has plenty of time to do that. But if you possibly bring in somebody who's already there, who's a 6'3", 6'4", above, and is able to be a nice target for Alex Smith to throw to, something he really necessarily didn't have all that much in his wide receivers in Kansas City.
Probably the best veteran wide receiver he ever had was Jeremy Maclin when he was at KC. But then they traded Jeremy Maclin, and then it's like you had Tyreek Hill was your number one, and then Travis Kelce, who got the majority of the passes.
Yeah. So there is, I do believe, hope for Washington, and it's because for any Washington fan that really liked Kirk Cousins, you hate this. You hate seeing him go because you probably then think Washington, the organization, mishandled this whole deal, and they may have. They very well may have. But I think that now having stability, as you mentioned, and being able to know that this is not going to be not to say that it won't be a concern, because if there's, if ever your quarterback situation, your quarterback struggling, stuff like that, people are right away going to jump on and say, we should have never gotten him, should have never done this trade, we should still have Kirk. But that you don't have that swirling over your head, like, is he getting a contract at the end of the year? Is it going to happen? Is he going to do that? Well, you don't have that anymore, and you can kind of shift it more to the playing field. Well, I mean, what can we do on the playing field instead of what's the front office doing about this? Is there a good relationship between both parties? And those days are now gone.
Well, even for Jay Gruden, it gives him some stability as the coach. Like every year, it's like, well, are we going to franchise tag this guy? Am I going to be worrying about a new quarterback? And that's the one thing ever since he came in, that the Redskins have never really had is because you had the RG3 drama when he first came in. Then they moved on to Kirk Cousins. Then it was like, well, are we going to commit to Kirk? Are we not going to commit to Kirk? Now you got Jay Gruden who, hey, I know who my quarterback is going to be for about 4 years.
But this is a good question, though. How about this?
Is he
like
gonna
you
last?
said, you came in, you had RG3. Then you had Kirk Cousins. Now you have Alex Smith. There was talk of Jay Gruden being on the hot seat this year. They bring in Alex Smith. If he's unable to have success with Alex Smith in the first year, is he gone?
Yes. I would say yeah, because there's no reason, like, you have no reason now. We're giving you a quarterback who is a playoff caliber quarterback and has turned around the Chiefs basically with what they have been and made them a playoff team, especially with Andy Reid. But the thing I wanted to look at, and I was waiting for it to come up, the internet was kind of slow, but wide receivers that we could see hit the free agent mark this year. The two big ones, and I'm going off of this because I saw articles that the Bears could be looking for him. Jarvis Landry, Sammy Watkins. You've got Mike Wallace could be a free agent. Harry Douglas. You've got Kendall Wright, Andre Roberts, Danny Amendola. I don't think Danny Amendola, he'll stay with the Patriots, especially if they win a Super Bowl. But there's not a ton of like, man, that guy's we got to get him like the Alshon Jeffrey of last year. Although Alshon, I believe, is going to be a free agent too. I believe he only signed a kind of prove it deal.
I thought they the 1 year deal.
I thought it was a prove it deal.
Within the season they had given him a new contract.
Maybe
I
they
thought
did.
that they did.
Maybe they did. But
here's-
there's no wide receiver like that I'm seeing right now on the list.
I would disagree with that. I would say if I'm
Sammy Watkins?
No, gosh, he's the walking injury bug. I would go after Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
I would go after Jarvis Landry. This guy is a guy who catches passes all the time. And I know that a Washington fan may say, well, that's what we have Jamison Crowder for. Well, Jarvis Landry does it better than anybody else. He's able to end up with a stat line of about 10 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a great possession receiver. He's a great guy coming across the middle.
25 years old.
And he's great. I cannot believe he's only 25 years old. He is so talented, and he's great in the red zone. He truly is great in the red zone. And whatever quarterback that Miami had, whether it was Matt Moore, whether it was Jay Cutler, whether it was Ryan Tannehill, they were looking for Jarvis Landry, and he was the number one wide receiver over there. It's not like he's just he's the number one wide receiver on Washington. He could go anywhere, almost anywhere, and be the number one wide receiver there because he's that good, he's that talented. That'd be a guy I would definitely push for.
You were right, by the way. They did give Alshon an extension, by the way.
I thought they did.
He's now locked up. He'll be a free agent after the 2021 season. So they did lock him up. You were right about that, but I want to move do you think, here, I'll ask you this. Any final thoughts on either Alex Smith? Well, really, let me ask that. How does this affect Alex Smith now? We talked about the Redskins. Before we move on to Kirk Cousins, Alex Smith now moving over from the AFC to the NFC. And here's two things. I'll start it first. First off, like we said when we saw it happen, it's going to be weird seeing him in a Redskin jersey. It's just going to be weird for a couple weeks. However, now you look at the division of the NFC East, Eli, Dak, Carson Wentz, Alex Smith, every team has their quarterback. Every team has it. What does this mean for Alex Smith going to the Redskins now?
This gives Alex Smith a huge confidence boost. And the reason why is because he's not looking over his shoulder at Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
He is not doing that anymore. He is the guy. He is the guy in Washington for the very, very foreseeable future.
Funny you say that because you know who taunted him today on the Dan Patrick Show about that? McLovin was taunting him about, Patrick Mahomes is the future in KC. Like, now looking at that interview in retrospect, it's funny that he gets traded now.
It is. But I think that this is going to be, again, I think this will be really good for Alex Smith. I think he'll thrive. I really do. I think he'll thrive in Washington. I think, again, this is a confidence boost, which is even, not that he was down because he had, again, his best season, I think, with Kansas City. And possibly, I'm really trying to remember his seasons in San Francisco. This may be his best season yet.
San Francisco, he had the same thing that you kind of had at the end, because towards the end of his San Francisco days, it was number one pick, but Harbaugh comes in and it's like, well, you're going to start this many games, and then Colin Kaepernick kind of took the job away from him, and then the Niners rode with Kaepernick when they traded him.
So this is good. This is really good for Alex Smith. I think this is a good situation for him. Like I said, he's not looking over his shoulder. I think he'll be successful with the Redskins.
Now let's move on into the next part, though, and the big part. The other quarterback that's involved here, Kirk Cousins, technically still a Redskin right now. However, it looks like now that the Redskins have Alex Smith, they are not. I saw Rappaport tweet from NFL Network. Looks like they are not going to re-sign Kirk Cousins or not going to franchise tag him. And Rappaport used two words at the end of his tweet: mega deal. I want to ask you, one team. Give me the first team. Where is Kirk Cousins playing next year?
Denver.
Why?
The reason that he would go to Denver, even though I think he should go to the Cleveland Browns and really help them out. But the reason that
he could.
He won't. But the reason why he goes to Denver is because, one, John Elway. Mm-hmm. He's always looking for that next quarterback. And if he already has him before he even has to touch the draft, that changes things.
They might not even take a quarterback.
Because then they wouldn't need to. If they could go and if they could get and make the push for Kirk Cousins, which Elway would, he would throw as much money as Kirk Cousins would want, because he would be the starter, he would be the franchise guy moving forward with Denver. And Denver actually, I think, is in a good spot in terms of they still have a good defense. They have an offense that has good wide receivers, good weapons. They have Demaryius Thomas. They have Emmanuel Sanders. They have a couple of other guys, wide receiver-wise. Tight end, they could probably use one there. Running back situation, maybe that could then shift their position to running back, which, I'm not thrilled with the running backs that they currently have, because I think they let them down too much throughout the season. But I think it makes sense just with the guy who owns and runs the Broncos, and the fact that Kirk Cousins could go over there and Denver could go right back up. Not necessarily to the top, but contending in the AFC West, certainly.
For me, there's three teams that I look at. I'll do what you did, though. I'll give you my first team that he should go to, and I'm not saying this because it's my team. I think Minnesota's the clear choice.
Well, duh. Yeah, of course.
I think no. And the reason why I say that is because Denver's my two. I'll throw that out there because you mentioned with Denver. The one thing I like about the Vikings more than I like about Denver is one of the big talks about Denver when you talk to the NFL networks, the other analysts around the league, is a defense has a shelf life. Usually it's about 4 to 5 years. The Bronco defense, look at what we're seeing with the Seahawks right now. Kind of on the downcline a little bit with their managing contracts, and the defense is kind of shaky right now.
Or some would say the decline.
The decline, but I say downcline.
I know.
The Broncos, I believe, will be entering that part of their system sooner rather than later. Defenses don't have long shelf lives. The Vikings, though, their defense is on the early part of that. So if I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm looking to sign a mega deal. I'm looking to sign a long deal. Which defense is going to be there for the majority of my deal? I go with Minnesota. I go with the younger defense. I go with the best defense from last year. You have it, like you mentioned, I don't like the running backs in Denver. How about Dalvin Cook, Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray? Does that wet your whistle? Because it's wets my whistle every Sunday, basically. Then you've got the wide receivers. You got Diggs. You got Thielen, Laquan Treadwell, if he ever decides to be the pick that we thought he was going to be.
I don't know about that.
He can be a good third or fourth guy. Kyle Rudolph was a guy I should have mentioned before Treadwell. But I like the roster overall, and I like the defense compared to Denver. That's why, for me, Minnesota's a clear number one to me. Denver's a number two because, like you said, John Elway, the defense is still good. But a third team I'll throw out there, and I want to get your opinion on this. What about the Cardinals? I know they have a new head coach coming in with Wilkes being a defensive guy, but they have a defense there. They've got a run game. They've got arguably the best wide receiver, like legacy wide receiver, still playing the game right now in Larry Fitzgerald. I think the Cardinals could also be a good fit for Kirk Cousins.
Well, the Cardinals would certainly be a fit just because of the fact that they need a quarterback.
Yeah.
They have a couple of backups right now, true backups, and no starter on that roster. But then if you're Kirk Cousins, you also want to look at, are you going to have time? Like Larry Fitzgerald, how many more years does he have in the tank? He's got 1, maybe 2, I would think. But then you're looking at guys like John Brown, the other John Brown. I'm trying to think. You've got JJ Nelson.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of there seems to be a little bit of instability
Jermaine Gresham,
in terms
their tight end.
There's just instability in terms of the weapons. You know, it's kind of like, but it's better than it's not much better than the Bears situation. You kind of have a modge-podge of people, and you just hope one of them can catch the ball.
But I could see the Cardinals going out and getting like a Sammy Watkins or a wide receiver to say, hey, you sign with us, we can still go ahead and get you a weapon, or we'll draft you a weapon in the draft.
But that's about, if I'm Kirk Cousins, so that's about the only way that I'd be able to be lured to Arizona, is if you're telling me, okay, you're going to sign me, you're going to give me the money and the deal that I'd like, but then you're also going to go after some of these guys that I'd also like to work with, because if I'm Kirk Cousins, based on what they have right now, the Cardinals would certainly be one of my last choices that I'd want to go with. Only because of, the facts that and figures that I just kind of handed out there, is that they just they're not the most solidified.
Let me ask you this. So Vikings, Denver, we're going to agree those are the top 2 teams. Let's say neither of them work out a deal with you. You got to pick between these next 2 teams to go to. You got to pick the Cardinals or the Jets. Who you go to? Who do you make a deal work for? The Jets or the Cardinals? Because the Jets could be a team that could be in the market for Kirk Cousins. I just don't see him signing there. I don't see him going to a New York, because it's like, really, what do you got? Like, I'm not going to win with the Jets.
I think I might go the Jets.
How come?
I think I might go the Jets because we saw a really good young wide receiver emerge there with Robbie Anderson this past year. They have a big tight end in Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I think that if they were able, they also have, who's the other wide receiver out there on the other side, opposite Anderson? He came over from the Seahawks, I believe.
Jermaine Kearse.
Jermaine Kearse. I mean, that's another guy that we saw with the quarterback that they had over there with McCown, was able to put up some good numbers there. They could be, they're old in the running game in terms of forte, but they were going with, again, I'm trying to remember his name, the running back. Bilal, thank you. I'm just forgetting some of these guys.
I'll be the safety blanket for you, Brandon. You ain't falling.
Thank you. Thanks, Travis. But you've got him, then you've got the guy behind him,
McGuire.
Thank you. Jeez Louise. So you've got those 2 guys there, but then for me, it's the Jets' defense. They've kind of stunk. I mean, and then when you're looking at defense-wise,
well, I mean, they just made a trade before the season where they sent a guy to Seattle just to bring in Jermaine Kearse.
I still would say the Jets, because at the end of the day, you're worried about the offense. You're worried about the offense. You're worried about winning. I understand that, but you've got to be able to work with some things, first off. So that's why I would say the Jets there, but he's not going to sign with either of those 2 teams. Let's be honest about it. He's going to sign, most likely, with a Denver or a Minnesota. I mean, that just seems to make more sense, but I don't want to go get this too far off the rails. Who's Minnesota keeping, though? Are they keeping Keenum around? Are they keeping Bridgewater around? Because what happens to loyalty then?
Here's my situation. Here's what I think. Bradford's gone. If we get Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum's out the door. I'm sorry, we're not franchise tagging you. Someone else is going to overpay for you. I think then we keep Teddy, and it's basically we have Kirk Cousins as our guy. we see what Teddy's got. And I feel like with the Vikings, and this is me talking now as a fan of this team, I'd be upset if Ziggy is not coming up with, if Ziggy and Spielman are not coming up with ways to offer something at Kirk Cousins tonight, like working with a package to try to get something going, then I've lost all faith, because you got one game away from the Super Bowl. You got Ziggy going out there saying that we will be contenders. We will get to the big game. I promise you that. How do you get there? You bring in a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. That's how you do it. I got 2 wild cards, though, for you. 2 big ones. First one could contend with the Broncos. I would say if they become a serious contender, Kirk Cousins would sign with them over the Broncos. What if the Jaguars go, hey, Blake Bortles, we're not going to re-sign you. We're going after Kirk Cousins. And they get Kirk Cousins. It's a young defense, young running back. You got some shelf life with that team where it's like, hey, I'm signing a long mega deal. This defense is young. They're going to be good throughout my entire contract. I've got weapons. Like Blake Bortles got him to the AFC Championship game. Allen Robinson was injured. That could be a team where if they get serious and go, hey, let's move on from Blake. Let's go after Kirk Cousins. I might think that then the Jaguars could be one of the only teams to rival the Vikings in a deal. The other one was the Bills I was going to mention, but the Jaguars would be a big, and me, if I was Kirk Cousins, I'd have to think about it if the Jaguars came knocking at my door offering me a deal.
But Ricky, here's what I think with that, and I don't really want to play the comparison game too much, but like you said, Blake Bortles got them to the AFC. No, their defense got them to the AFC Championship game. Blake Bortles didn't mess it up for them. Mm-hmm. And then for Case Keenum got there with the help of the defense. Where do you step in and you say, well, you know what? Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but we like what we have in Blake Bortles. We didn't think, if you would have come to us today at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of this past season, or the one that we're still in because there's a Super Bowl still to be played, and you would have said, hey, Kirk Cousins is available. Oh, we're coming for you. But then Blake Bortles started playing, and we saw that, okay, he was getting his mojo back. He was looking better. He was feeling pretty good. He played a pretty damn good game in that AFC Championship game. We're good. And then for the Minnesota Vikings to say, you know, we truly didn't think that we had this in Case Keenum. We didn't think Case Keenum had this in Case Keenum. Case Keenum didn't think he had it in Case Keenum. And all of a sudden, wow, this guy's a good quarterback. Mm-hmm. You know, he didn't just manage these games. He won these games. He got us out in front on top in these games. Where is it that you draw the line and you go, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's solid. He's really good. But I like what I've got in my current quarterback. And I think that we keep him. We keep his confidence going. This guy, you know, it wasn't just a one-year fluke. Mm-hmm. 1 game, 2 games, maybe I'd get it. But and then he went, reverted back to some. It didn't happen. It did not happen like that. So where's the point that you go, I'm happy with the quarterback I've got, and I'm not going to overpay to get Kirk Cousins?
I am going to, and this is a good example because both of the teams we're talking about were in the same situation, 1 game away from the biggest game that they'd ever play in their lives. I'm going to go back to something you said in our baseball topic that we talked about earlier. You got to grab the bull by the horns. And for both of these teams, Kirk Cousins could be a guy that comes in, takes you over that next level. My microcosm that I'm going to use for the Jaguars, and I mentioned it on the Primetime Podcast during our Super Bowl preview, not the Primetime Podcast, the Onside Kick, during our Super Bowl preview, is there was a time Miles Jack comes in, gets them the fumble. They're up 20-10. Jaguars can march down the field, make it at least a 13-point game, could even put this team to bed. It's kind of like I think of the Red Sox with Kevin Millar, where it's basically like after that fumble, I could just see Kevin Millar going, put Tommy B to bed right now. Don't give him another chance. You put him to bed tonight. Guess what they did after that fumble? 3-and-out, punt. Guess what the Patriots did when they got the ball back? Touchdown. Now it's a 3-point game. Now, I'm not saying just because Kirk Cousins was there, that would be a different storyline, but that's the thing with Blake Bortles is, yeah, he didn't fuck up this year, and he didn't throw a ton of interceptions, and we were asking, like, oh, could he be the guy? But really down to the core, Blake Bortles was, yeah, I could see 3-and-out. And a big moment, 3-and-out, right back to Tommy B. And when you're in the AFC, odds are, if you make it to the AFC Championship game, you're running into one quarterback, and that's Tommy B. Now, Tommy B's shelf life, some people say, isn't that much longer. Tommy B thinks he's going to play till he's 50. But odds are you're going to have to run through Tommy B if you make it to that game. For the Vikings, can we be completely honest? Should have lost in the divisional round. Like, I'll be the first to say that. Was I excited that we won because, A, I was right and that defense choked, like I said, 6 weeks before, maybe even sooner before, and Mark was sitting right there and said, I don't think it's going to happen, but it ended up happening, which Mark is like, I knew you were going to say that when I brought it up. However, both of these teams need something to get over the hump. They need that quarterback. And I know that people look back and it's like, well, the Ravens did it and they only had Trent Dilfer. Yeah, but Trent Dilfer wasn't Case Keenum. Trent Dilfer wasn't Blake Bortles. Trent Dilfer wasn't the Eli Mannings, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings of the world. But he wasn't that guy to where it's like, man, he'd be the backup, or man, he's the guy that Blake Bortles, like, we're trying to dish out of town. That's why Kirk Cousins offers need to be made for him, because he could take either the Jaguars or the Vikings over the hump if they want to sign him. He can take them over that.
And how many playoff games has Kirk Cousins played in?
I believe 0. I'd have to double check, but I believe 0 playoff games that he's played in. Maybe 1.
So then my question would be, how do we know and how do teams know that Kirk Cousins would be able to lead their team back there? A guy who doesn't have that brilliant playoff experience, that guy who doesn't have that spotless playoff record. How do we know, and why should a team go and overpay for a guy who couldn't really do anything
one playoff game
outside of one playoff game? I mean, and I didn't think that I wanted to say that he did go to the playoffs one time.
It was his first year His first year as a starter, he lost to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
And that's tough. But but my whole thing is that it's not like you're going for a guy who's in the playoffs every year. It just didn't work out between him and his team. They had different sides, disagreement, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. And everyone's trying to swoop in and get him. This is a guy who's usually on an average, on what's been an average team in Washington. And I like Kirk Cousins. I think Washington should have paid him the money that I think he probably does deserve. But I don't want to get all giddy over here and say, man, this will be the second coming of Christ, and our team will go to the Super Bowl. I don't want to sit over here and give that misconception that that's exactly what's going to happen. Kirk Cousins could make your team better. That's why I still believe he goes to the Cleveland Browns, and he'll get them at least 5 to 7 wins.
Is he a Tom Brady? No. Is he a Peyton Manning? No. Is he, I would even say, is he a Drew Brees? Is he an Aaron Rodgers? No and no. But the thing that is different about, I'm just looking at the Vikings and the Jaguars. You can maybe throw the Broncos in this too. But with those two teams, how they are different than the Redskins, and you exactly said it, the Redskins have been average. They have been average with Kirk Cousins. I would say that the roster that the Vikings have on offense and defense, and the roster that the Jaguars have on both offense and defense, 1,000,000 times better than what he had in Washington. And that alone could elevate him to where I would think he'd be an upgrade from both Blake Bortles and Case Keenum. He would be an upgrade from Paxton Lynch. He would be an upgrade from Trevor Siemian. 1,000,000 times upgrade from them because Denver doesn't have a quarterback right now. He would be an upgrade from those guys. But
I do want to say something. So this just came in.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City Star first reported the trade can't become official till the start of the league year on March 14th.
Yep.
The Redskins would give Kansas City a third-round pick and an unnamed player in the deal as compensation, and that's what sources told ESPN. And then ESPN's Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen reported that Smith would sign a 4-year extension with the Redskins, which we mentioned, averaging $23.5 million per year with $71 million in guaranteed money. Holy crap. My thing is, why did Washington not believe that Kirk Cousins was worth it? So before you say anything, because I do want you to answer that question.
Yes.
Because it is an interesting question. At least 6 other teams express interest in Alex Smith, according to Schefter. I would love to know who those 6 teams are and if they made an offer.
Say that last part again.
At least 6 other teams expressed interest in Alex Smith, according to Adam Schefter.
You want me to try to guess the 6? Because I can.
You can.
Denver, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Buffalo, Arizona, and maybe Redskins. That's 6, or besides the Redskins, including
6 other teams.
6 others. So I'm thinking one. So I got one more.
Dolphins.
Kind of. Ryan Tannehill's coming back. So I've got Buffalo, Buffalo, New York, Denver, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Arizona. That's the 6 I would go with.
Well, here's what I would love to know: I would love to know the true exact 6 teams and what they were willing to put out there too, and why Washington? Why Washington? And why did
Denver
the Chiefs,
and Minnesota had to be
why?
One of
and
them.
why did the Chiefs feel like that was the best deal for them? I'd be so interested to know the other ones because I think it would be.
Maybe we'll get a 30 for 30 one day.
Hopefully it comes next week.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a 30 for 30 one day.
But I want you to answer the question.
Well, here's
why would you give 71? Again, obviously I like Alex Smith and I think he'll do well, but why $71 million to Alex Smith, at least guaranteed? $71 million in guaranteed. I'd love to have $71 million in guaranteed money. $23.5 million a year, 4-year deal, but not willing to give anything near that to Kirk Cousins.
Because I'll tell you this, Kirk Cousins was probably asking for more. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 things happened. One, if Kirk Cousins is trying to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, because he'd be stupid not to. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone throws a lot more money at him to be a quarterback. My kind of assumption, because I'm not in there, is that Kirk Cousins believed he was worth this much. The Redskins believed he was worth this much. And the Redskins felt we're not going to franchise tag him because that's going to be like $34 million just for 1 year. And it's the last time they could tag him. And they probably were like, what I'm assuming is they kind of had like, I'm going to relate it to the Bulls and the Pelicans earlier today, where Bulls and Pelicans were talking. Nico, who they were going to trade to the Pelicans, said, I don't have a no trade clause, but he could say yes or no to the deal. He said, I'm not saying yes unless the Pelicans agree to pick up my player option or my team option for next year. Pelicans said no. Nico said, no, I'm not going there. Maybe it was the same thing where the Redskins weren't going to make the deal unless they got a commitment from Alex Smith to sign with them long term, to fix their quarterback situation so that they had something locked down. I'm just assuming.
And Alex Smith obviously was going to say yes to that because he wants the stability as the starting quarterback.
He doesn't want to look over his shoulder, like you said. One team I did want to mention with Kirk Cousins, though, and I want to ask you this, Buffalo. Because there have been rumors that They don't like Tyrod Taylor. They're trying to get him out of town. Nathan Peterman, I don't care what Buffalo fans say, he's not the answer. I've seen articles
What do you mean? He only threw 6 picks the whole year.
I know. But there have been articles to where it's like, could they trade for Andrew Luck? Could you see Buffalo
So I'd like to trade for someone who
getting
can't throw.
rid of Tyrod Taylor to try to get Kirk Cousins to come in? And would Kirk Cousins want to go to Buffalo?
If I'm Kirk Cousins, I don't want to go to Buffalo.
I don't want to go to Tom Brady's. I don't want to see Tom Brady twice, maybe 3 times a year.
I don't even care about seeing Tom Brady. I would not want to go to Buffalo. I don't want to go to that weather. I mean, I honestly, and I'm being serious.
Don't want to go to a cold weather team?
I mean, it's Washington, so it's kind of the same type of deal.
Same area.
But so that's me, but I'm not Kirk Cousins. So unfortunately, but
man, if the Bears didn't have Mitch, I'd be all over Kirk to the Bears.
Truly, I'm trying to think of what would draw me if I'm Kirk Cousins over to Buffalo. They've got a average to above average defense,
which I assume will get better with Sean McDermott.
They have
LaShawn McCoy. I almost said LaShady McCoy. LaShawn McCoy.
They have LaShawn McCoy. Great.
Calvin Benjamin.
He is so injured all the time. So
was Sammy Watkins.
I know. It's the walking injury bug. They can't get rid of it. They can't. It's the non-shakeable walking injury bug.
At least they got to trade him.
And I say that so with force because
Charles Clay,
Calvin Benjamin's on my
they
fantasy
drafted Zay Jones.
Zay Jones is promising. Basically, what I'm saying is there's a lot of question marks with Buffalo, which I wouldn't go there. Yeah. I don't want to say they made the playoffs on some fluke because they didn't. They played well.
Well,
because they played well, then they didn't, and then they played really well down the stretch.
Andy
to end
Dalton
it.
helped them too. Andy Dalton really helped them.
Honestly, truly, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
They made the playoffs.
Yeah, I know, but without an Andy Dalton game, the Redskins, the Ravens go to the playoffs. Well,
and let me tell, which is hilarious that the Ravens weren't able to make the playoffs for that reason
because of the Red Rocket.
And Buffalo fans were truly appreciative of that. I mean, I've never seen so many Buffalo fans donate to an Andy Dalton cause. But there's not enough in Buffalo that entices me if I'm Kirk Cousins. There's just not enough.
Let's move on to the last part.
Oh, it's not over yet?
The part that you cannot wait for. Patrick Mahomes will be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Chiefs. What's going through your head? You're a Chief fan. What's going on? Patrick Mahomes, starting quarterback. The Patrick Mahomes era is starting in KC.
Well, it was an inevitable when they went and drafted him.
Traded up for him.
They still drafted him, though, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good.
But it's not like they waited to draft him. They moved up
no,
to
they didn't,
get
because they knew who they wanted, and they went and got him, and I like that, and I think that's good because I think Patrick Mahomes will be good, and I think what he did in his one start that he was able to get...
About 280 yards, no touchdowns, and INT.
That's not bad. Against a pretty solid Denver defense, I'll take it. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a good quarterback, and the Chiefs would not have gone after him if they didn't think he would be. You know, again, it's one of those things where I kind of always say about the draft, he could pan out, he couldn't happen.
It's all about potential.
But I do think that he'll be good. I see some similarities in terms of what we saw with Alex Smith as a guy who's able to throw the ball, guy who's able to run with the ball, guy who's able to move, within the pocket and then move and run out of the pocket. This is a guy who I think is going to be a solid quarterback because he's from that kind of dual threat mold. I don't see, we of course will have a whole off season and everything for him to really get acclimated with everything, everybody, everyone on the offense, all the schemes, everything like that.
He had a full year to do it. He just wasn't getting first team reps.
I know, but what I'm saying is that it's much different to watch and hold a clipboard from the sideline than it is to actually be in there in the game situation. And even if he is getting the reps, it's completely different than getting the first team reps.
Exactly like that. It is. But it's not like he doesn't know who Travis Kelce is.
It's not like he's new coming in this year.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you're right on that. But I think that his confidence will grow. Now, it's good for both him and Alex Smith. Alex Smith is out in Washington now. He's by himself. He's the starter. And now Patrick Mahomes, by himself in Kansas City. He's the unquestioned starter. It's good for both of their confidences. I think that this is, again, a thing where Patrick Mahomes, could there be a couple of rough patches to start? There could be. It's expected. But I do believe that he's going to be a strong quarterback down the stretch, someone that Kansas City and Chief Nation, hashtag Chiefs Kingdom can get behind.
The hashtag that Sean loves to use after every
Chiefs loss. Yeah.
Just hits up the text group, hashtag Chiefs Kingdom.
I'm looking forward to it.
I got another question for you, and this is because Chiefs this year 10-6. We have Phillip Rivers in that division. The Chargers did well, 9-7. The Raiders have Derek Carr. They now have a brand new head coach in John Gruden coming to town. Hopefully will bring some infusion of offense back to that team, being the offensive mastermind working with Derek Carr. And with the Broncos, I'm going to use the stipulation of what if they get Kirk Cousins, because now the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. Would you say that they'd still be the favorite to win the West? Or now that they have Mahomes, you might be able to see it because John Gruden, John Gruden. I almost said Jay Gruden. I'm like, no, we just mentioned him with the Redskins. John Gruden with the Raiders. If Kirk Cousins comes in for the Broncos, could the AFC be a lot tougher than it might have been last year with the Raiders going only 6-10? Broncos are 5-11. Chiefs roared out 6-0. And then finished 10-6.
If the Raiders don't fix their defense, they're going to be the exact same that they were this year. Offensively, that you would like to think that they'll be better with health and everything like that. But if they can't fix their defense, their porous defense, they're going to stay about where they are. Maybe 1 or 2 games better, maybe 8-8. The Chargers, I never put a whole lot of stock in them lately because they're so up and down. And then Denver, if they don't get Kirk Cousins, I'm not terribly scared. If they do get Kirk Cousins, I think that boosts them a couple of games. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that they were 10-6 this past year, and they really had they started off super hot. They super sucked. And then they were really good again, and to be 10-6 with Patrick Mahomes, I wouldn't terribly be surprised if it's an 8-8 season or a 9-6 season.
However, they're also losing Nagy.
But I also would not be surprised if an 8-8, if a 9-7 ended up winning the division based off of some of the factors that are going on right now.
A 7-9. We're going back to like when the NFC West was the Seahawks got in at 7-9.
It won't be that bad. And then some people may say, Brandon, well, you say you're excited for Patrick Mahomes, but you're only giving him 8-8 or 9-7. Yeah, it's gonna be like he's a rookie. Coming in and stuff like that. In terms of it started one game. Yeah, exactly. So you got to give the guy a little bit of a, I don't want to say a pass, but a little bit of a cushion to say, I'm not expecting him to go 11-5 right away. That'd be awesome. But, I think that there's got to be a little bit of cushion for that learning curve and everything like that. 8-8, 9-7, that's pretty darn good. And again, I think in that division with kind of how everything is, if changes aren't made, drastically, I think that most teams are going to fall in. The Raiders, you would like to think that they would probably be better than what they were this past year by, like I said, a game or two. Or for their sake, they'd like to say 4 or 5 better. For the Chargers, really, right now, the way that the Chargers are set up, 9-7 is right about where I think that they'll be around. Denver, maybe 6 wins.
And here's where I'm going to need your help because you're the Chiefs fan, is running backs coach Eric Bieniemy? B-I-E-N-I-E-M-Y. B-I-E-N-I-E-M-Y.
Say it however you want.
Running backs coach. They promote him to the offensive coordinator. That, I think, is going to be a bigger loss to the Chiefs than the Alex Smith is Matt Nagy. With Matt Nagy being in Chicago, not calling the plays, I don't know if they're going to have Eric calling the plays or they're going to have Andy Reid call the plays, but that to me will be a bigger loss than Alex Smith for the Chiefs. I think the AFC West going to be very interesting this year. Mahomes starting, John Gruden coming in.
John Gruden starting. I think
Whether
he's
the-
owner, player, and coach.
Well, I mean, for the contract, the 10-year contract he got, he better be. And then you also got the Broncos, like we talked about, could be in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. Any final thoughts?
I want to say really quickly, you said on the running backs
Already
coach.
jumping over that, jumping on it. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You knew it was.
The running backs coach, you said, you feel like, you're not sure about that. The guy who worked with Kareem Hunt, and I don't want to say he made Kareem Hunt because Kareem Hunt made Kareem Hunt.
I'm just saying in the sense of Nagy was calling the plays.
No, I understand. But, I mean, if you're working with this running back and you already have this really good relationship and know what you can make plays specifically for him and everything like that, I don't think that it's going to be some dramatic, like, oh, my gosh, these plays are going to be so much different. I don't think that. I don't see that. I actually think it could be stronger because you're bringing this guy up and you're after such a great year that Hunt had. I think that could just help things be even stronger. That's at least what the hope would be, but it's going to be really interesting in 2018.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. 2 emergency podcasts in 2 weeks. We had the Blake Griffin trade happen on Monday. We did that for the fast break. About 53 minutes of gold on that trade. And now we're at another, 52, 53 maybe minutes of gold here with the Alex Smith trade to the Redskins. So let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I'm sure I'm going to get Mark's thoughts about this next week as we'll probably look more in depth, maybe a little Kirk Cousins stuff as well. Want to thank you guys for watching and listening, but as always, have a good day, everybody.